Hello, welcome back to my kitchen. Today we're making baked ziti, a childhood favorite of mine. When we go to like the mall, go to the food court, there's that, I think it's called like Serrano. I'll put a picture of it here, hopefully if I can find it. It's Sbarro? Something with an S. But normal kids would be like, ooh, can I get a slice of pizza? Not this guy. He's over there going like, Mother, can I have some baked ziti? And she would give in to my childish demands. And so I'd get baked ziti all the time. And it's one of those things that just brings me joy. But with going gluten-free, finding ziti pasta, a little difficult. This recipe claims that Banza, which if you've never had Banza pasta, great pasta, tons of protein. But they claim that they create ziti pasta. I've never seen it, so maybe somebody out there can find this mythical pasta. I've just never been graced with its presence. I couldn't even find rigatoni. I'm using penne pasta, but it's still tubular, so it'll get the sauce all up in there. But on other news, your boy bought a green screen. I don't really need a green screen, but I did. So now I can do fun little green screen add-ins to the videos, like making a tiny little Aaron. Hello, tiny little Aaron. How are you today?
I'm great.
Well, that's good. Do you got any fun facts for the audience?
Giant sea spiders the size of dinner plates crawl in the icy waters off the coast of Antarctica.
Well, I'm sure somebody out there will find that fun. I haven't actually looked up what that fun fact will be yet, so hopefully it's good. But I mean, this is just one of those things that just brings me joy. I'm just doing this for fun. You guys watching it is just icing on the cake. It makes it seem less insane, the fact that I'm making it public. If I just made these for myself, people would be concerned. Anywho, why don't we run through the ingredients and then get into cooking. 12 ounces of penne pasta, 1 pound of beef, an onion, 48 ounces of pasta sauce, 15 ounces of ricotta cheese, 8 ounces of mozzarella, half a cup of grated Parmesan, salt, and pepper. The first step is going to be to make the pasta, and normally you do it like al dente, but for this, because you're putting it in the oven afterwards and it's gonna kind of continue cooking a little bit, you want it just like a little bit less than that. Spoiler alert, little peek behind the scenes, I've done this step already. I found that for mine, for the penne pasta that I'm using, 8 minutes is the amount of time that I'm going for. It calls for 10 minutes of cooking, but I'm only doing 8. So you're just gonna have to follow your gut, unless you use the same one as me and you use penne pasta, then you can do 8 minutes, but you're gonna have to figure this one out a little bit on your own. However, once the pasta is done, you should rinse it under cold water so that it stops it from continuing cooking. So I realize that I never said a prep step. So instead of, it usually is first, but I guess we're doing it second. We're going to prep the onions and also some garlic because I'm adding garlic to the recipe. So fight me. Now the next step is going to be to cook the onions. So I'm doing the whole onion. I'm not messing around with half an onion. Cook that up. Then gonna cook the beef, which this recipe actually doesn't say where to use the salt and pepper that it calls for in the ingredients list. So I'm gonna use it here, kind of salt and pepper the beef before I cook it. And then the garlic that I am just adding to the recipe, gonna throw that in third because that's the quickest to cook. And then after all of that, put in the pasta sauce, which I got the fancy stuff because it was on sale, and 2 bottles of that were cheaper than 2 bottles at full price of what I usually get. So I was like, deal. So this recipe is just going to be taken to the next level because of the fancy pasta sauce. Obviously, you can make your own, but I'm lazy. So why don't we do all of that? I listed like 30,000 different things. The next step is going to be to add the pasta to the meat sauce that we just made. However, I feel like the recipe implies that you just put the pasta into the sauce in the vessel you have it in, which I ran out of space. So I'm going to move all that into a big bowl, dump that in there, and then lightly mix it up. I'm assuming that this is because the pasta will fall apart if you mix it too vigorously. So just kind of gentle, kind of like folding it together, almost as if you're doing something with like whipped cream or like a meringue. So just kind of fold it together and just let it kind of coat everything, not necessarily evenly, like you're not going for that, just get it incorporated. Now it's time to like assemble the ziti. Very similar to lasagna, but much simpler because all the sauce and pasta are already mixed. So we're just going to pour half of that into the bottom of a pre-greased 9x13. Then we're going to dollop some of the ricotta cheese on top of that, half of the ricotta cheese to be specific. And then we're going to dump the other half of the pasta mix sauce stuff on top of that, dollop the other half of the ricotta on that, and then it says to, I think, like gently stir, just like incorporate the ricotta a little bit, so just kind of mix in those dollops a little bit so it's a slightly spread out, and then we're just gonna coat the top with the mozzarella and the Parmesan. Now we want to cover the whole thing in foil. Probably a good idea to teepee it a little bit. You don't want it to like press down because if that foil is making contact with the cheese, when you put it in the oven, it's going to melt, and then when you take off the foil, it's just going to take off all the cheese with it. So pro tip, kind of leave a little room at the top there, and we're going to bake that at 350 for 15 to 20 minutes. I'm going to go for 15 because afterwards we're going to uncover and then bake for 5 to 10 minutes. And that's the step that's going to kind of like brown the cheese on top. So I'm going to do less in the first part because everything's already cooked, and then more the 10 minutes in the second part to really give that a nice like browning of the cheese, because that is my favorite part. All right, here we have it. Hopefully I've waited long enough to let it cool off so I don't burn my mouth, because it came out of a piping hot oven. I will say, before I get into this, that the extra, like the 10 minutes was not enough to kind of give it the browning on top that I wanted. So I put on the broiler for, I think 4 minutes. And I was sitting in front of the oven looking like this, just waiting for it to be done, because I didn't want to overdo it. There's a fine line between like a nice like browning of cheese versus burning cheese. So I wanted to kind of make sure I didn't let it go too far. So I just sat in front of the window patiently waiting. And I think it paid off because it looks perfect. So why don't we taste it and then we'll see how great it tastes. That's a good use of words. It's been what, 60 something videos? I should be better at speaking, but I'm not. Maybe one day, maybe 100 videos. That's when I'll all of a sudden learn how to make a sentence. All right, let's give this a go. That is good. I don't even know how to describe what's going, because it all just like melts together in just perfect deliciousness. But I do really like the ricotta in there. It gives it like a nice like creamy texture, taste. I'm losing it. It's late. I need to eat food. My brain's shutting down. But that kind of contrasts with like some of the kind of crusty pasta and like the cheese that was exposed to the surface from the broil, and then just the kind of like hearty, little acidic taste of the like meat pasta sauce. It all just works so well. Maybe some like garlic bread, that might be a good addition to this. But honestly, this just how it is, fantastic. I'm very happy with it. I will say, if I have to do a criticism, is the pasta is a bit overdone. So maybe like 7 minutes instead of the 8 that I talked about. So that while it's sitting in the oven, because it's kind of like gonna be boiling in the tomato sauce while it's in there, it probably just took a little bit too far. So it doesn't have quite as much bite within the pasta that I'd like, but overall, still great. That's like a minor complaint. It's not gonna make me turn my nose up to any of this. I'm still gonna eat all of it and be very happy doing it. So this is a fairly straightforward recipe, nothing too crazy happening in it, just cutting an onion, cooking the onion with the beef, and then kind of mixing in a bowl and putting in the oven. Like no crazy technique needed, nothing overly complicated, not a lot of work needed. So this is a big winner. Anybody can make it. I encourage you to try and make it. If you need it to be vegetarian, like if you're vegetarian, then just don't include the meat. Pretty easy to do that conversion. However, if you're like vegan, I'm not sure, because there's a lot of dairy products in here. But vegetarian for this recipe, pretty easy conversion, but obviously mine is not vegetarian. But I'd imagine it would still be very delicious. The meat, I think, is just adding a bit more of like a hearty feel to it, and then the protein like being filling. But the flavor, I think, is mostly like the tomato sauce and then the cheeses and whatnot. So you're probably not gonna really be missing out on much if you just don't include the meat. But yeah, I don't think I have anything else beyond go make this and you'll be happy. That's the equation here. You plus baked ziti equals happiness. It's a flawless formula. And on that note, bye Mom, still not dead. See ya.